Alrighty, we've got more leveling to do, and that's all I've really got to do. A lot of adversary weapon leveling. Also, sorry for not uploading on Saturday. I think Saturdays might be the day that I don't record on, just because of my work schedule. I work 3 to 12 that day, and usually I record after work, not before work. Well, I guess I could record the day before and then edit. I don't know, just go ahead. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, we're talking about raids again. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. Feels like the raid discussion happens at least once a year. So far it's been twice this year, actually. Pablo talked about it in a dev short and then talked a little bit more about it on a Twitter thread. That was what, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe longer. And then recently Mactix decided to make a video talking about wanting raids in Warframe. Now I don't think the question is can raids happen in Warframe. I think the question more so is will they ever happen, because I do think that they can happen. It's just I think we need to start smaller first. Really, there's a bunch of arguments for raids and against raids. In terms of the arguments against raids, well, Warframe's design is very there's a lot of power creep in this game. That's like the best way to put it. We are just really powerful. So when it comes to a raid, it would be hard to create something that's actually difficult in terms of gameplay, like actually staying alive, slaying things. That's no issue for us whatsoever. The only way they could really make it difficult is if they actually make it annoying. Ability nullification, really ridiculously tanky enemies. They could bring back damage attenuation, but that's all stuff that would be just really not fun to deal with. But the counterpoint to that is difficulty could come through the puzzles. And really, Warframe does not have many puzzles. The biggest puzzles we have is the ciphers. The hardest one probably being the drifter one, where it inverts your mouse whenever you're trying to move the icon around. That one always skews with my brain whenever I come across it. And then I guess the other counterpoint against raids is that would require it to there goes my dog again barking. But as I was trying to say, raids also kind of require communication, and well, Warframe is not used to communication at all. At least not in mission, because there's plenty of talking going on in region chat and Q&A chat. There are plenty of nice social features in this game, but there's no really social feature when it comes to voice chat. That's a whole nother thing. But part of the reason there's like no one talking at all is because there's no reason to talk. So I think if there's actually a reason to talk, and DE could probably make it a little bit more, not exactly in your face, but voice chat just a little bit more known, because there's been maybe 1 or 2 times where I've heard someone in voice chat and it completely threw me off. I was not expecting it at all. I was just confused, like, is that a game or is that IRL or is that another video that I'm watching? What is that? But despite all this, there's no reason that a raid can't happen, because if DE wants to make it happen, they definitely can. Oh, the other counterpoint was definitely rewards. Warframe's reward structure is very different, because a lot of the cosmetic rewards you typically just get with plat. Tenogen skins you have to buy. There's a few cosmetics that are actually earned or farmed for instead, like a bunch of the ephemeras from Tenant Sisters. But for the most part, rewards in Warframe are just materials, blueprints, that type of deal. Because while Warframe has RNG, it's a little bit more deterministic in the sense that the RNG is just in what you have to craft. The deterministic part is basically the mod configuration of everything. In Warframe, you need to get the RNG of the weapon drop or armor drop in the first place, and then you have the RNG of the correct mods and perks. So rewards would definitely be a question mark. There definitely is some stuff they could do. Maybe they could grant a weekly gold or silver tater. Maybe they could give a built forma or pre-built omni forma. It could be another kind of weekly reward type of deal, similar to Descendia and Elite Archimedia, that stuff. I definitely don't think raids would be anything like World of Warcraft. I think I'm more so comparing them to Destiny 2, because Destiny 2 raids are at least a little bit more comparable to Warframe. Destiny 2 is 6 players though, instead of 4, but World of Warcraft is raids that I think last over 24 hours, at least for the world's first completions. And then also their huge team sizes, what, like 20 plus players? I think the longest world's first completion for a Destiny 2 raid was around 24 hours. The average length of a world's first is usually more so around 7 or 8 hours though, I would say. And then for completions later on of the same raid, it's typically around an hour if you just have a team that you, holy crap man, my words, English tough. I know 2 languages, one is English, one is gibberish. Gibberish is my first one. But if you just have a team that actually knows what they're doing, then it's maybe around an hour. Yeah, of course some raids are easier than others. I think Vault of Glass and Root of Nightmares are the easiest ones on Destiny 2. Pretty easy to take a new player through them. The mechanics are simple but nice to do, I think, especially for a beginner. It's not complicated to learn really. And it's not like Warframe's first ever raid would have to be super mechanically difficult. There's levels of difficulty. But I think the major problem of starting out with a raid first thing is that there's not really anything in between a raid and the base game. Now when I say the base game, I'm referring to just what you see on the star chart. And the star chart is comprised of mobile defense, survival, interception, defection, capture, exterminate, rescue, and spy. And maybe I missed one or two things. But for the most part, that's what the basic mission structure is. And none of those missions are really that detailed. It's not a lot of depth to them. It's a lot of just, oh, go from point A to B and just kill things. That's it, really. The most unique mission is probably spy missions. So really, my suggestion is that while raids can happen, I don't know if they ever will, but I think that we should have like a steady progression to that level. So we need to just go with something lower than raids. And I think something that could be it is basically a dungeon. Dungeons are in Destiny 2 and they're basically mini raids. A dungeon is usually about 3 encounters or phases, and the general structure is always pathfinding, and then you go to the boss fight, then a little bit more pathfinding, then you either go to a boss fight or an arena, a puzzle, some sort of mechanic, and then you go to the next pathfinding and then the final boss. And usually along the way you are using mechanics in the pathfinding section or the arena section that will help you in the boss fight. Typically just right out the gate with starting the dungeon, you start off with the mechanic that you'll be using throughout the whole dungeon. And the other nice thing about dungeons in Destiny 2 is that they can be completely done solo. So they still have puzzles and mechanics similar to raids, but it's all soloable. You don't need other players for it. And it's also just not as long a dungeon. I think the fastest dungeon I ever did was maybe around 30 minutes. I think solo is maybe about an hour. And there's also variation in dungeons. Some are easier than others, but they still have some depth and detail into them. It's not just go from point A to B and kill stuff. It's a little bit deeper than that. And really, I think that's what Warframe should start with. Just missions that have more detail and depth into them, actually some puzzles and mechanics that can probably be soloed as well. And then if those work well and people like them, then maybe we can start talking about raids. Because really I think the problem with Warframe has always just been that the basic missions are just really basic. Nothing too complex, nothing too advanced. It's all stuff that you can really just turn your brain off and play. And I've always kind of wished for more. Like, I don't have problems with the base missions. I always just wish that there was something greater, though. I think that's part of why I like Elite Archimedia so much, because it is something at least a little bit greater. It still is not that detailed, not that advanced, not that complicated, but it is at least something a little bit more. Same with Descendia, it's a little bit more at least. Now on the discussion of will raids ever happen, I mean, DE is a smaller company for sure. They don't have gobs of money to throw out the window, and they are pretty wise with their spending management as well. They rather focus on content that is for the majority of players than the content that is for the minority of players. And raids in games are typically for the minority of players. And also when it comes to more difficult content in Warframe, it's usually built off the base of the game. Like typically it's just some other content that's tuned to be a little bit more difficult. Like Steel Path, for example, it's just the base star chart, but tuned to be a little bit more difficult. It doesn't really cost a lot of dev resources and time to make that happen. Whereas a whole raid, that's a lot more dev resources and time to actually make happen. And I just don't really think it's worth it to Digital Extremes to make that actually happen. It's probably a lot more worth it to focus on stuff that's for the 90% of players. And then when it comes to focusing on the 10% of players, they just take that content and amp it up a little bit. Like the Guilty is just Purita Rebellion, but tuned to be a little bit more difficult. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that takes a lot of dev resources or time as compared to making a whole raid. But still, I think it would be nice for DE to at least bring some more in-depth missions and probably try to have some dungeons or mini dungeons. I think another good example is exotic missions in Destiny 2. They're almost like a mini version of dungeons. It's a bunch of pathfinding. You're almost like in a maze. Gotta do some jump puzzles and whatnot. You're slaying enemies along the way too, until you get to the end where there's the boss fight. I'm gonna say a boss fight, talking, wowie. But really, I think Zero Hour and the Whisper mission from Destiny are also perfect examples of content that could be potentially implemented into Warframe. If you ever played it, if you ever seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. So really, we just need to work our way up to raids, because right now we're still kind of at the beginning. We're kind of at the bottom. We're not even halfway to raid tier, I think. But anyway, I think that's all I got to yap about for now. Hopefully I'll be OR6 by the time you see the next video. Anyway, that's all I got to say for now, so I'll see you all in whatever I do next.